Human Orphan helped a crippled alien girl cross the river. At dawn, 50 alien warriors arrived. The sun beat down mercilessly on the barren wasteland that separated the human settlement from the alien village across the river. 12-year-old Ryder wiped sweat from his brow, adjusting the worn sand-colored jacket that hung loosely from his thin frame. His bright blue eyes scanned the horizon out of habit, a survival instinct developed over years of living as an orphan in this harsh frontier. "Don't wander near the river, boy," Old Man Parker had warned him just that morning. "Those blue-skinned devils would skin you alive for sport." Ryder had nodded dutifully, but the river called to him. It always had. The rushing water was the only thing that seemed alive in this godforsaken place. Besides, the settlement's warnings about the aliens across the water had always seemed exaggerated. Nobody he knew had actually encountered one of the blue devils up close. He kicked a stone, watching it tumble down the embankment toward the churning waters. The river was swollen from recent rains, frothing angrily against its banks. As he turned to head back, a sound caught his attention, faint but unmistakable. A moan. Ryder froze, his heart hammering in his chest. The sound came again, weaker this time. Without thinking, he scrambled down the rocky slope toward the river's edge. That's when he saw her. Half hidden among the reeds was a girl about his age. Her delicate, pale sapphire skin was covered in scrapes and bruises. Long, silver-blue hair clung to her face, matted with dirt and blood. But it was her eyes that caught him, large, expressive, and filled with terror. "Stay back!" she gasped in surprisingly good English, trying to drag herself away but wincing in pain. "I'm not going to hurt you," Ryder said, raising his hands. "You're injured." The alien girl stared at him, her chest heaving with rapid breaths. "They'll come for me," she whispered. "They always do." "Who?" Ryder asked, cautiously moving closer. "It doesn't matter." She tried to stand, but collapsed with a cry of pain. "My leg. I can't." Ryder glanced across the raging river toward the alien settlement, then back at the injured girl. Every lesson he'd been taught since childhood screamed at him to run, to alert the settlement about the alien intruder. Instead, he knelt beside her. "I'm Ryder," he said softly. The girl hesitated, then replied, "Aaliyah." "That's a pretty name," Ryder said, examining her injured leg without touching it. "I think it's broken." "You can't stay here." "I can't cross the river," she said, desperation creeping into her voice. Ryder looked at the churning waters. "Not alone you can't." Before he could second-guess himself, he slipped one arm under her knees and the other behind her back. She was surprisingly light. "What are you doing?" Aaliyah gasped instinctively, wrapping her arms around his neck. "Helping you cross," Ryder said, his voice steadier than he felt. "Hold tight." The current was stronger than he'd anticipated. Each step was a battle against the rushing water, which quickly rose to his chest. Aaliyah clung to him, her face buried against his shoulder. Halfway across, his foot slipped on a submerged rock, and they both went under for a terrifying moment before he regained his footing. "We're almost there," he gasped, pushing forward with every ounce of strength in his young body. When they finally reached the human side, Ryder collapsed on the bank, Aaliyah still in his arms. They lay there for several minutes, catching their breath. "Why did you help me?" she finally asked, her large eyes studying him with confusion. Ryder shrugged. "You needed help." "But She gestured to her blue skin. "A girl with a broken leg," Ryder finished for her. "Come on, I know a place we can hide until you're better." As the sun began to set, Ryder led Aaliyah to an abandoned storage shed at the edge of the settlement. He'd stashed blankets and supplies there over the years, his own private sanctuary when the orphanage became too crowded or when the older boys were looking for someone to torment. "It's not much," he apologized, helping her onto a makeshift bed. "It's perfect," she said, looking around with wonder. "Thank you." As night fell, they talked in hushed voices. Ryder learned that Aaliyah was the daughter of a scholar, not a warrior as humans believed all aliens to be. She told him of her people's art and music, while he shared stories of human resilience and innovation. "Our elders tell us humans are violent barbarians," Aaliyah admitted. Ryder laughed softly. "And ours say your people are cruel monsters." "Yet here we are," she said, a small smile playing on her lips. "Oh, yet here we are," he echoed. They fell asleep side by side, Two children from worlds divided by nothing more than a river and generations of misunderstanding. Ryder woke to the first light of dawn and the sound of heavy footfalls outside the shed. Aaliyah was already awake, her eyes wide with terror. "They've found me," she whispered, clutching his arm. "They're here for me." Ryder peered through a crack in the wall and felt his blood run cold. Surrounding the shed were dozens of towering alien warriors mounted on massive reptilian beasts. Others circled overhead on winged creatures that blotted out the rising sun. He counted quickly, 50 at least. "Stay behind me," Ryder said, his voice barely audible as he moved toward the door. With trembling hands, he pushed it open and stepped outside, placing himself between Aaliyah and the warriors. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then, to Ryder's astonishment, the lead warrior slowly dismounted and approached. The alien's armor gleamed in the early morning light as he stopped a few paces away, studying Ryder with an unreadable expression. Then he did the last thing Ryder expected. He bowed. Ryder stood frozen, his heart hammering against his ribs as the imposing alien warrior maintained his bow. The morning sun cast long shadows across the clearing, making the scene even more surreal. "You may rise," a melodic voice called from behind him. Ryder turned to see Aaliyah standing in the doorway of the shed, her posture suddenly regal despite her injured leg. Gone was the frightened girl from yesterday. In her place stood someone with unmistakable authority. The warrior straightened but kept his head slightly lowered in deference. "Princess Aaliyah," he said in accented but clear English, "your father has been beside himself with worry." "Princess?" Ryder whispered, looking back at Aaliyah with wide eyes. A flush of deeper blue spread across her cheeks. "I didn't think it relevant when you were saving my life," she said softly. The lead warrior approached, his movements measured and respectful. Up close, Ryder could see intricate markings etched into his armor, symbols of rank and honor, he guessed. "I am Commander Thorin," the warrior said, addressing Ryder directly, "Chief of the Royal Guard and Protector of the House of Luminera." He gestured to the warriors behind him. "We have been searching for the princess since her disappearance." "I wasn't kidnapped," Aaliyah interjected firmly. "I left of my own accord." Thorin's expression remained neutral, but Ryder sensed his disapproval. "Regardless, Your Highness, your father awaits your return." "And what of him?" Aaliyah nodded toward Ryder. "He saved my life when your guards failed to protect me?" A murmur rippled through the assembled warriors. Thorin studied Ryder with newfound interest. "The human boy will be honored appropriately," he said. "If he wishes to accompany us, he may do so as our esteemed guest." Ryder glanced nervously at the settlement behind him. By now, someone would have noticed the alien presence. He could already imagine Old Man Parker organizing a hasty defense. Not that their outdated weapons would stand a chance against these warriors. "I should tell my people," Ryder began. "There's no time," Thorin cut in. "We must return Princess Aaliyah to the palace immediately. Her father has summoned the Council of Elders." "Why?" Aaliyah asked, her brow furrowing with concern. Thorin hesitated, his gaze flicking between Aaliyah and Ryder. "The prophecy of convergence," he finally said. "The elders believe it has been fulfilled." Aaliyah's eyes widened. "That's impossible." "What prophecy?" Ryder asked, feeling increasingly out of his depth. Aaliyah turned to him, her expression a mixture of wonder and disbelief. "An ancient prediction that has guided my people for generations. It speaks of a time when the river runs wild, and a child of earth carries a child of sky across the divide, breaking the cycle of hatred." "I just helped someone who needed it," Ryder said, uncomfortable with the weight of significance being placed on his impulsive act of kindness. "Perhaps that is why it had to be you," Thorin said thoughtfully. "The prophecy speaks of an act of pure compassion, untainted by knowledge of consequence or reward." One of the warriors approached, leading a smaller reptilian mount. "For the human," he explained, bowing slightly. Ryder stared at the creature, which regarded him with intelligent amber eyes. Its scales shimmered with iridescent blues and greens in the morning light. "His name is Ryder," Aaliyah said firmly, "and he will ride with me." Before Thorin could object, she continued, "He carried me across the river. I think I can manage to share my mount for the journey home." The commander conceded with a nod, helping Aaliyah onto her mount, a magnificent beast with ornate saddle trappings of befitting royalty. He then turned to Ryder. The journey to our city takes less than an hour by Skyrift, he explained, gesturing to the flying creature circling overhead. But we will travel by ground for the princess's comfort. You will be our honored guest, but I must warn you, no human has entered our domain in living memory. Will I be allowed to return? Ryder asked, thinking of the few possessions he'd be leaving behind. That will depend on the king, Thorin replied honestly, and on what the elders determine about the prophecy. Ryder took one last look at the human settlement, the only home he'd ever known, though it had never truly felt like one. No family waited for his return, no one who would miss him specifically, rather than just noting another orphan gone. I'll come, he decided, accepting Thorin's help onto the mount behind Aaliyah. As they set off, Aaliyah whispered over her shoulder, "Thank you. I know this must be frightening." Less frightening than facing Old Man Parker after harboring an alien princess? Ryder joked, earning a musical laugh from Aaliyah. They rode in formation through terrain that gradually transformed from barren wasteland to increasingly lush vegetation. The warriors moved with practiced precision, their mounts responding to the slightest commands. Your city is beyond those hills, Ryder asked, pointing to a range of emerald peaks ahead. The outer reaches, yes, Aaliyah replied, but the palace lies at the heart of Luminara, our capital. Why did you run away? Ryder asked quietly, so only she could hear. Aaliyah was silent for a moment. I wanted to see the river up close, to understand why such a small thing could divide our people so completely, she sighed. I didn't plan to cross it, but I was attacked by a wild squealing. In my escape, I fell down the embankment and broke my leg. Lucky for both of us, Ryder said. Aaliyah turned slightly, her eyes meeting his. Perhaps not luck at all, if the prophecy is to be believed. As they crested the final hill, Ryder gasped. Below them sprawled a city unlike anything he could have imagined. Crystalline spires reaching toward the sky, connected by graceful arches that seemed to float on air. The entire city pulsed with a soft, blue-white light that made it appear as if it were breathing. Welcome to Luminara, Aaliyah said, a note of pride in her voice, and to the beginning of something new. The royal palace of Luminara loomed before them, its architecture defying human understanding. What appeared solid from a distance revealed itself as an intricate lattice of light and material that seemed to shift with each passing cloud. Guards in ceremonial armor flanked the entrance, their posture stiffening as the procession approached. Ryder dismounted awkwardly, his legs cramped from the long ride. A servant rushed forward with a hovering platform for Princess Aaliyah, who graciously accepted the assistance while keeping her eyes on Ryder. The king awaits in the grand chamber, announced a tall, willowy alien wearing elaborate robes. His skin was a deeper blue than Aaliyah's, almost indigo, with luminescent patterns that pulsed subtly along his temples. High Counselor Vrex, Aaliyah acknowledged with a formal nod. This is Ryder, my savior and friend. The High Counselor's gaze swept over Ryder, his expression unreadable. Indeed, the human child who has set our prophecies in motion. I'm not a child, Ryder said automatically, then winced at how childish the protest sounded. A flicker of amusement crossed Vrex's features. By our reckoning, Princess Aaliyah has seen 42 cycles. Though her physical development matches yours, age is relative. Ryder glanced at Aaliyah in surprise. She gave him a small shrug and mouthed, later. They were led through corridors that seemed to be composed of solidified light, with walls that occasionally rippled like water. Court officials and nobles stopped to stare as they passed, whispering behind elegant hands. Ryder felt acutely aware of his dirty clothes and disheveled appearance. Don't mind them, Aaliyah murmured. Most have never seen a human up close. And I've never seen... Whatever this is, Ryder replied, gesturing to their surroundings. Crystallized thought matter, she explained. Our ancestors learned to manifest mental energy into physical form. Before Ryder could process this, they arrived at massive doors that parted silently at their approach. The grand chamber beyond was a vast space dominated by a dais, where a regal figure sat upon a throne that appeared to be carved from a single piece of luminescent material. King Luminara was both more and less intimidating than Ryder had imagined. His features were sharp but not unkind, his bearing powerful yet restrained. The king's skin was the palest blue Ryder had seen among the aliens, almost white, with intricate markings that glowed with inner light. "Father," Aaliyah called, her hovering platform bringing her to the foot of the dais. The king rose immediately, concern evident in his swift movement. "Aaliyah," he said, his voice deep and resonant, "you've caused quite the commotion." "It wasn't intentional," she replied. "A skreeling attacked me near the river." The king's gaze shifted to Ryder, who fought the urge to shrink back. "And this is the human who carried you across the divide?" Ryder managed a clumsy bow, unsure of the proper protocol. "Your Majesty, I'm Ryder." "Approach, Ryder of Earth," the king commanded. As Ryder climbed the steps of the dais, he became aware of the court's collective intake of breath. Apparently, this was not standard procedure. The king studied him intently, then did something unexpected. He extended his hand in a very human gesture. "My daughter's life is beyond value. You have my gratitude." Ryder shook the offered hand, noting the strange, cool texture of the king's skin. Anyone would have done the same. "Would they?" The king's expression was thoughtful. "Our peoples have been separated by more than a river for generations." A commotion at the chamber entrance interrupted them. A group of elderly aliens entered, their robes adorned with complex symbols that seemed to shift and change. "The Council of Elders," Ryder guessed. "The prophecy is fulfilled," announced the foremost elder, his voice cracking with age and emotion. "The convergence begins." The chamber erupted in murmurs and exclamations. King Luminara raised a hand for silence. "Elder Morn, we have not yet confirmed." "The signs are unmistakable," Elder Morn insisted. "A human child bearing royal blood across the raging waters. The ancient texts speak clearly." "I'm not royal blood," Aaliyah interjected. "I am royal." "A distinction without difference in prophecy," another elder said dismissively. Ryder felt increasingly uncomfortable as the debate continued around him, as if he were a curiosity rather than a person. He caught sight of High Counselor Vrex watching the proceedings with calculating eyes. "Perhaps," Vrex suggested smoothly, stepping forward, "we should consider the implications before proceeding. The human settlements have long been a concern for our security." "They've never threatened you," Ryder said, unable to remain silent. Vrex's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Haven't they? Your kind has expanded across the stars with remarkable speed. Some might call it invasive." "Enough," the king commanded. "This human saved my daughter when he believed her to be nothing more than an injured stranger. That speaks to character, not conquest." "Or perhaps to strategy," came a new voice. A muscular alien in military dress stepped forward from among the courtiers. "Commander Drav of the Border Guard, Your Majesty. I must point out that this human's arrival coincides with increased activity at their settlement. They've been testing weapons at their perimeter." Ryder frowned. "That's just old man Parker being paranoid. He tests the defense grid every month." "You see," Drav addressed the court, "he admits their military preparations." "Defense grid? It's ancient tech that barely works," Ryder protested. "We're a mining outpost, not an invasion force." The debate intensified, with factions quickly forming among the courtiers. Ryder noticed Aaliyah watching him with concern, her fingers nervously tracing patterns on her hovering platform. King Luminara finally raised both hands, commanding silence. "Enough. The prophecy speaks of unity, not further division. The human will remain as our guest while the council interprets the signs." He turned to Ryder. "You will be given quarters befitting your status as my daughter's savior." "And what status is that exactly?" Vrex inquired silkily. The king's gaze was steady. "That remains to be seen, but for now he is under my protection." As servants led Ryder and Aaliyah from the chamber, he could feel the weight of dozens of alien gazes upon his back. Some curious, some hopeful, and some unmistakably hostile. "Well," Aaliyah whispered, her hand briefly touching his, "that could have gone worse." Ryder wasn't so sure. As they exited, he caught High Counselor Vrex deep in conversation with Commander Drav, both watching him with calculating intensity. "Your father seems decent," Ryder offered. "He is," Aaliyah agreed. "But even kings must navigate politics. She glanced back at the closing doors of the grand chamber. "And I fear you've just become the most political thing in Luminara." Ryder awoke to sunlight filtering through translucent walls that seemed to breathe with the morning breeze. For a moment, he forgot where he was, reaching instinctively for the worn blanket he usually clutched against the pre-dawn chill of the orphanage. Instead, his fingers met silken sheets that adjusted their temperature to his body heat. A soft chime announced a visitor. Before he could respond, the doorway rippled and King Luminar himself entered, flanked by two attendants who remained respectfully by the entrance. Ryder scrambled to his feet, acutely aware of his borrowed sleeping garments, a flowing robe of material so light it felt like wearing mist. "Your Majesty," he managed, attempting a bow. The king waved away the formality. "I hope you found your accommodations satisfactory." "They're amazing," Ryder admitted, "though I'm not sure how to use half the things in here." A rare smile crossed the king's face. "My daughter mentioned you might need assistance with our technologies. She has volunteered to be your guide once her leg has been properly treated." Ryder nodded, relieved. "How is she?" "Healing well. Our medical arts are advanced in such matters." The king's expression grew more serious. "I've come to discuss a proposition with you, Rider of Earth." One of the attendants stepped forward, activating a device that projected a three-dimensional map of both territories, the human settlement and Luminara, with the river cutting between them like a jagged scar. "For generations, our peoples have lived in isolation from one another," the king began. "Fear and misunderstanding have kept us apart. Yet the prophecy speaks of a bridge between worlds." He gestured to the map. "I believe you may be that bridge." Ryder studied the projection. From this perspective, the distance between the settlements seemed trivial, almost absurd. "What exactly are you proposing?" he asked. "Become our ambassador to your people," the king said simply. "Learn our ways, our history, our culture. Then return to your settlement and convince them to send a delegation here. It is time we ended this meaningless division." Ryder's mind raced. Him? An ambassador? He was an orphan, a nobody in the settlement hierarchy. Old Man Parker and the council would never listen to him. "I'm not sure I'm the right person for this," he admitted. The king's gaze was penetrating. "The prophecy chose you, not I. There is wisdom in its selection that we may not yet understand." Before Ryder could respond, the doorway rippled again and Aaliyah entered. Her leg was encased in a translucent brace that emitted a soft blue glow, but she moved with much greater ease than before. She wore a flowing gown that complemented her sapphire skin, making her appear both regal and ethereal. Ryder felt suddenly self-conscious in his sleeping attire, especially when Aaliyah's gaze lingered on him a moment longer than strictly necessary. "Father," she acknowledged with a formal nod, though her eyes sparkled with barely contained excitement. "I see you've already spoken to Ryder about the ambassadorship." "Indeed," the king replied, "though he seems uncertain of his qualifications." Aaliyah moved closer to Ryder, her scent reminiscent of exotic flowers after rainfall. "You crossed a raging river to save a stranger," she said softly. "That speaks to courage and compassion, the very qualities an ambassador needs." Her proximity was distracting. Ryder cleared his throat. "But I don't know anything about your culture or customs. I'd probably cause an interspecies incident within 5 minutes." "Then you'll learn," she said, as if it were the simplest thing in the world. "I'll teach you." The king observed their interaction with interest. "It is decided, then. Ryder will study our ways under Princess Aaliyah's tutelage. When he is ready, we will arrange for contact with the human settlement." After the king departed, Aaliyah's formal demeanor relaxed. "I hope you don't mind being volunteered," she said, perching gracefully on a chair that seemed to grow from the floor to accommodate her. "Do I have a choice?" Ryder asked, only half joking. "Always," she replied seriously. "But I hope you'll accept. This could change everything for both our peoples." Ryder ran a hand through his tousled hair. "I'm just not sure your court is ready for humans. Some of them looked at me yesterday like I was a particularly interesting insect." Aaliyah laughed, the sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "High Counselor Vrax certainly has his reservations, but others are merely curious. You're the first human most have ever seen up close." "And you?" Ryder asked impulsively. "What do you see when you look at me?" The question hung in the air between them. Leah's large eyes studied him with an intensity that made his pulse quicken. "I see someone who didn't hesitate to help when it mattered," she finally said. "Someone who looked past differences to see a person in need." A mischievous smile played at her lips. "Also, your coloring is quite exotic to us. Many find it appealing." Ryder felt heat rise to his cheeks. "Right. Well, when do we start these ambassador lessons?" "Immediately," she declared, standing. "First lesson, proper attire. Those sleeping robes, while charming, are not appropriate for court functions." A panel in the wall slid open, revealing an assortment of garments that blended human and Luminaran styles. Practical but elegant, with subtle embellishments that marked them as high status. "These were created for you overnight," Aaliyah explained. "Our artisans worked from scans taken when you arrived." Ryder examined a jacket similar to his old one, but made of material that shifted colors subtly with movement. "This is incredible." "Second lesson," Aaliyah continued, moving toward the door to give him privacy to change. "Breakfast etiquette. The morning meal is when alliances are formed and information exchanged. It's crucial you understand the seating hierarchy." As she reached the doorway, she paused, glancing back at him with a smile that transformed her from princess to co-conspirator. "And third lesson, how to recognize when High Counselor Vrex is plotting against you." His left antenna twitches. Ryder couldn't help but laugh. "Is that really a thing?" "No," she admitted, "but it made you smile. You'll need that sense of humor for what's ahead." Her expression softened. "This won't be easy, Ryder. There are those who will resist any change to the status quo. Like Commander Drav? Among others. But my father believes in this path forward, as do I." She hesitated, then added, "You showed me kindness when you had every reason not to. Perhaps you can show others that same possibility." With that, she was gone, leaving Ryder to prepare for his first day as humanity's most unlikely diplomat. No, the greeting comes after the third resonance gesture," Aaliyah corrected, demonstrating the complex hand movement again. Ryder sighed, flexing his cramping fingers. "Remind me why I need to learn 17 different ways to say hello?" "Because each greeting conveys specific intent and social standing," Aaliyah explained patiently. They were in one of the palace's smaller gardens, surrounded by flora that responded to their movements, shifting colors and occasionally emitting soft musical tones. "In Luminaran culture, communication isn't just verbal. It's a full-body experience," she continued. "The way you position your hands tells others whether you're approaching as an equal, a supplicant, or a superior." Ryder attempted the gesture again, this time with better results. "How do humans look to you when we talk? Just flailing our hands around randomly?" Aaliyah laughed, the sound making nearby flowers pulse with golden light. "Actually, yes. When Commander Thuran first observed humans from a distance, he reported that you all seemed to be constantly preparing for combat with your wild gesticulations." "Great," Ryder muttered. "No wonder your people thought we were dangerous." 3 weeks had passed since Ryder had accepted the role of ambassador in training. Each day brought new lessons, from the intricacies of Luminaran etiquette to their complex social hierarchies. Some concepts translated easily, others remained frustratingly alien. "You're making remarkable progress," Aaliyah assured him, moving closer to adjust his stance. Her touch was cool against his skin, sending a pleasant shiver up his arm. "Most Luminarans take years to master these customs." "I have an excellent teacher," Ryder replied, enjoying the deeper blue flush that spread across her cheeks at the compliment. Their relationship had evolved during these lessons, shifting from formal instruction to something more comfortable, punctuated by moments of connection that left Ryder both exhilarated and confused. Aaliyah was 42 cycles old, whatever that meant in human terms, yet she matched him physically and emotionally in ways that transcended their different species. "I think that's enough protocol for today," Aaliyah decided, settling onto a bench that seemed to grow from the garden floor. "Let's move on to history." Ryder groaned but joined her. "More tales of glorious Luminaran achievements." She gave him a reproachful look. "Actually, I thought we might discuss what really happened between our peoples. The truth behind the division." This caught Ryder's attention. "You mean why we've been enemies for generations? I always assumed it was some ancient war or territorial dispute." "That's what most believe," Aaliyah said, her expression growing serious. "The official history claims humans attempted to invade Luminaran territory after their colony ships landed. But I've been researching in the restricted archives and I found something different." She activated a small device on her wrist, projecting images of ancient documents. "These are the original contact logs from when humans first arrived on this planet. They were seeking refuge after their transport ship was damaged. They asked for help." "And your people refused?" Ryder guessed. "Worse," Aaliyah said softly. "We agreed to help, but there was a terrible misunderstanding. Human physiology is dramatically different from ours. The medical treatments we offered killed the first human delegation." Ryder stared at the floating images, processing this revelation. "So your people thought it was sabotage, and humans thought we had deliberately poisoned them," Aaliyah finished. "Both sides retreated in fear, establishing settlements on opposite sides of the river. Over generations, fear became hatred, and the true story was buried. All this time," Ryder said, shaking his head, "we've been afraid of each other because of a medical incompatibility." "History is often tragic in its simplicity," Aaliyah replied, "but now we have a chance to correct it." She deactivated the projection and turned to face him fully. "Which brings me to our next phase. It's time for you to return to your settlement." Ryder blinked in surprise. "Already? But I've barely scratched the surface of your customs." "You know enough to begin the dialogue," she insisted. "My father has arranged for Commander Thorin to escort you back tomorrow. You'll carry formal invitations for your leaders to send a delegation." "They're not going to listen to me," Ryder warned. "I'm just an orphan kid." "Old Man Parker runs the settlement, and he's the most paranoid human you'll ever meet." Aaliyah's expression remained determined. "Then make him listen. Show him what you've learned about us." "About me?" She hesitated, then added more softly, "About us." The weight of her words hung between them, acknowledging something neither had directly addressed. Ryder reached out, taking her hand in his, a gesture that would have been scandalous in formal Luminaran society between unmarried individuals. "I'll come back," he promised, "with or without a delegation." "I know you will," she said, her fingers intertwining with his. "The prophecy doesn't end with separation." Later that evening, as Ryder packed the few possessions he'd accumulated during his stay, a servant announced an unexpected visitor. Elder Morn, the ancient Luminaran, who had first proclaimed the fulfillment of the prophecy. The elder entered slowly, his luminescent markings dimmed with age. "I understand you return to your people tomorrow," he said without preamble. "Yes, Elder," Ryder confirmed, setting aside the ceremonial dagger Aaliyah had gifted him for the journey, a symbol of trust that a Luminaran would understand immediately. "There is something you should know before you go," Elder Morn said, lowering himself carefully onto a seat. "The prophecy of convergence has 3 parts. You have fulfilled only the first, the crossing of the divide." Ryder frowned. "What are the other parts?" "The second speaks of the return bearing truth, which I believe is the task now before you," the elder explained. "But the third," he paused, his ancient eyes troubled. "The third speaks of blood and fire before the joining." "That sounds ominous," Ryder said uneasily. "Prophecies often are," Elder Morn replied. "But remember this, prophecies are not fixed destinies. They are possible paths, illuminated by the wisdom of the ancients. How they unfold depends on those who walk the path." With those cryptic words, the elder departed, leaving Ryder to wonder what challenges awaited him across the river, and what blood and fire might mean for the future of both their peoples. The human settlement looked smaller than Ryder remembered, its prefabricated structures and makeshift additions huddled against the wasteland like a defensive crouch, so different from the soaring architecture of Luminara. Commander Thorin had escorted him to within sight of the perimeter before retreating with his warriors, as they'd agreed. A Luminaran military presence would only inflame tensions. "Remember your training," Thorin had said before departing. "And this?" He'd handed Ryder a small communication device. If you need extraction, activate it. Now, as Ryder approached the settlement's main gate, he touched the ceremonial dagger hidden beneath his new jacket, Aaliyah's parting gift. Its weight was reassuring. The settlement's alarm blared as he was spotted. 2 guards rushed forward, weapons raised. "Identify yourself," one shouted. "It's Ryder," he called back, raising his hands. "I'm back." The guards exchanged confused glances. "Ryder? The orphan kid? You were presumed dead." "Obviously not," Ryder replied, trying to project the confidence Aaliyah had taught him. "I need to speak with the council immediately. I bring a message from Luminara." The name sent a visible ripple of tension through the guards. One spoke urgently into his comm unit, while the other kept his weapon trained on Ryder. "You're coming with us," the guard finally said. "Old Man Parker wants to see you." They escorted him through the settlement, where residents stopped to stare. Ryder heard the whispers, "Traitor, I'm alien lover, brainwashed." His Luminaran-influenced clothing didn't help matters. The council chamber was actually the settlement's largest mess hall, repurposed for governance. Old Man Parker sat at the head of a long table, his weathered face set in familiar lines of suspicion. Beside him sat other settlement elders, including Dr. Hayes, the colony's chief scientist, whose analytical gaze fixed on Ryder with unexpected interest. "So," Parker began, "the prodigal son returns. With fancy new clothes and fancy new friends. I hear—" "I've been in Luminara," Ryder confirmed, standing tall despite his racing heart. "I've learned their language, their customs. They want peace." Parker snorted. "Peace? Those blue devils have been our enemies since the first landing. They poisoned our original delegation." "That was a medical incompatibility, not deliberate murder," Ryder countered. "I've seen their historical records. Both sides misunderstood what happened." "Convenient story," Parker scoffed. "And I suppose they just happened to be massing troops at the river these past weeks? Preparing for this peace?" Ryder frowned. "What troops?" Dr. Hayes spoke for the first time, her voice calm and measured. "Our sensors have detected increased activity on the Luminaran side of the river. Multiple large gatherings, movement of what appear to be military assets." "That doesn't make sense," Ryder insisted. "King Luminara wants diplomatic relations. I carry formal invitations for a delegation to visit their city. While they prepare an invasion force," Parker demanded, slamming his fist on the table. "We're not fools, boy." "No one's preparing for invasion," Ryder said, but doubt crept into his voice. What had Commander Drav been doing while he was learning courtly manners? "I'd like to examine those invitations," Dr. Hayes interjected, extending her hand. Ryder hesitated, then removed the data crystal from his pocket, placing it in her palm. She studied it with professional curiosity. "This technology is remarkable," she murmured. "I've been studying Luminaran artifacts for years, but nothing this sophisticated." "You've been studying them?" Ryder asked, surprised. Hayes nodded. "Someone had to understand our neighbors. The council has tolerated my research, though they consider it a waste of resources." "Because it is," Parker growled. "The only thing worth knowing about those creatures is how to defend against them. And speaking of defense," he turned to a guard, "escort our young friend to containment. He'll stay there until we decide what to do with him." "You can't do that," Ryder protested. "I'm trying to prevent a war." "A war they're clearly preparing for," Parker retorted. "Our perimeter sensors show they've been testing our defenses, probing for weaknesses." Ryder's blood ran cold. "What have you done in response?" "Activated our full defensive grid," Parker said grimly, "and prepared a preemptive strike if necessary. We won't be caught unprepared like our ancestors were." "You're making a terrible mistake," Ryder insisted as guards moved to restrain him. "This is exactly what Commander Drav wants, to provoke conflict." "Take him away," Parker ordered. As they let him out, Dr. Hayes caught his eye with a meaningful look that Ryder couldn't quite interpret. The containment facility was little more than a repurposed storage unit with a cot and basic facilities. Ryder paced the small space, mind racing. Everything was unraveling. If Parker launched a preemptive strike, the fragile peace initiative would collapse. "Blood and fire before the joining," Elder Morn had said. Was this the prophecy's dark warning? Hours later, the door slid open unexpectedly. Dr. Hayes slipped inside, glancing nervously over her shoulder. "We don't have much time," she whispered. "I've examined the data crystal. It contains exactly what you claimed. Formal diplomatic invitations and historical records confirming your story about the original misunderstanding." "Then you believe me?" Ryder asked hopefully. "I do," she confirmed. "But Parker and most of the council don't. They've authorized a strike team to cross the river tonight and disable what they believe is a Luminaran weapons platform." Ryder's stomach dropped. "It's not a weapons platform. It's probably preparations for the Festival of Lights. It happens every year at this time. Aaliyah told me about it." "Aaliyah?" Hayes raised an eyebrow. "Princess Aaliyah," Ryder clarified, feeling heat rise to his cheeks. We're... "I see," Hayes said with unexpected gentleness. "Well, your princess and her people are in danger. Parker's strike team leaves in an hour." "We have to stop them," Ryder insisted. Hayes nodded, producing a small device that disabled the containment field. I thought you might say that. I have a skimmer waiting by the east perimeter. It should get you across the river before the strike team." "Why are you helping me?" Ryder asked as they slipped through darkened corridors. "Because I've dedicated my life to understanding the Luminarans," she replied. "Their culture, their biology, their technology, everything points to a sophisticated civilization that values harmony. This conflict serves no one." They reached the settlement's edge where a small hover vehicle waited, its engine muted. "The strike team will cross at the northern ford," Hayes explained, handing him a comm unit. "I'll try to delay them, but you need to warn the Luminarans." Ryder climbed aboard the skimmer, then paused. "Come with me. You could be the real ambassador, someone with authority, with scientific understanding." Hayes shook her head. "My place is here, trying to reason with Parker. Besides," she added with a wry smile, "I think the prophecy calls for you, not me." As Ryder sped toward the river, the night sky suddenly blazed with light. Luminara was beginning its festival, unaware of the danger approaching from the human settlement. In the distance, he could see dark shapes moving. Parker's strike team, already on the move. The third part of the prophecy echoed in his mind: blood and fire before the joining. He pushed the skimmer to its limits, praying he wasn't too late to prevent the prophecy's darkest interpretation from coming true. The river roared beneath Ryder as he pushed the skimmer to its limits. Ahead, the night sky above Luminara bloomed with ethereal light. The festival had begun. Thousands of luminescent orbs floated upward from the city center, creating patterns that shifted and danced in the darkness. It was breathtaking, and Parker's strike team was about to mistake it for a weapons test. Ryder spotted the human squad at the northern ford, 6 figures in combat gear, moving with practiced stealth. He veered the skimmer toward them, heart pounding. There was no time for subtlety. He cut directly into their path, bringing the skimmer to an abrupt halt and jumping off to face them. "Stop!" he shouted, arms outstretched. "This isn't what you think." The squad leader, a grizzled veteran named Holt, raised his weapon. "Stand aside, kid. Parker said you might try to interfere." "Look at the lights," Ryder insisted, pointing to the display above Luminara. "It's a festival, not a weapons test. They're celebrating, not preparing for war." "Pretty lights can hide ugly intentions," Holt replied, though uncertainty flickered across his face. "I've lived among them for weeks," Ryder said, standing his ground. "If you cross this river with weapons, you'll destroy everything we've worked for. You'll make enemies of people who want to be our friends." Holt hesitated, glancing at his squad. "Parker's orders were clear." "Parker's been manipulated," Ryder countered. "We all have. Commander Drav has been feeding false intelligence to both sides, trying to provoke a conflict." "Why would an alien commander want war with us?" one of the squad members asked. "Because peace threatens his power," came a familiar voice from behind Ryder. He turned to see Aaliyah approaching on a hovering platform, accompanied by Commander Thorin and the several royal guards. She wore ceremonial attire for the festival, her silver blue hair adorned with luminescent flowers that matched the lights in the sky. The human squad raised their weapons instinctively. "No." Ryder moved between them. "She's Princess Aaliyah of Luminara. She's the one I helped across the river." "The one from the prophecy," Thorin added, his tone formal but non-threatening. Holt's eyes narrowed. "What prophecy?" Before anyone could answer, a harsh voice cut through the night. The prophecy that would end our rightful dominance. Commander Drav emerged from the shadows on the Luminaran side, and flanked by a dozen armed warriors. His face contorted with disdain as he surveyed the scene. "I knew you would interfere, human," he spat at Ryder. "You and your princess with her naive dreams of peace." "You've been sabotaging both sides," Ryder accused, "feeding false reports to Parker about Luminaran military movements, while telling the king that humans were testing weapons." "Of course I have," Drav sneered. "Peace would mean the end of military supremacy. The humans would bring their chaotic ideas, their unpredictable ways. Our ordered society would crumble." "Our society would grow," Aaliyah countered, "as it was meant to. The prophecy speaks of joining, not conquest." "A prophecy I never believed in," Drav declared, signaling his warriors to advance, "until I saw how it could be twisted to my advantage. Blood and fire before the joining. I simply ensured the blood would flow too freely for any joining to occur." Holt and his squad, witnessing this confession, lowered their weapons slightly. "You're saying this alien has been playing both sides?" Holt asked Ryder. "Exactly," Ryder confirmed. "He wants us to fight each other while he sees his power in the chaos." Drav laughed coldly. "And now it's too late to stop it. My loyal forces are already moving against the king, using your human attack as justification." "Not if we expose you first," Aaliyah said, activating a device on her wrist. Her voice suddenly amplified, broadcasting throughout Luminara and remarkably to the communication systems of the human settlement. "People of Luminara and the human settlement," she announced, "I am Princess Aaliyah. What you are about to hear is the confession of Commander Drav, architect of deception and enemy of peace." She played back Drav's admission, his voice echoing across both territories. The commander's face contorted with fury. "Kill them!" he ordered his warriors. "Kill them all!" What happened next would be recounted for generations on both sides of the river. As Drav's warriors charged, Ryder drew Aaliyah's ceremonial dagger and placed himself directly between the advancing force and the princess. Simultaneously, Holt and his human squad formed a protective line beside him, their weapons now aimed at Drav's forces rather than the Luminarans. "Humanity stands with Luminara," Holt declared, the simple words carrying profound weight. Drav's warriors hesitated, confused by this unexpected alliance. Commander Thoran seized the moment, stepping forward with royal authority. "By order of King Luminara, lay down your weapons," he commanded Drav's forces. "Your commander has committed treason against the crown and deception against our people." One by one, Drav's warriors lowered their weapons, their loyalty to the monarchy ultimately outweighing their commander's influence. Seeing his plan unraveling, Drav drew his own weapon and lunged at Aaliyah with desperate fury. Ryder intercepted him, using the defensive maneuvers Thorin had taught him during his time in Luminara. Though outmatched in strength, Ryder's human reflexes were faster than the commander anticipated. As they struggled, Holt fired a precision shot that struck Drav's weapon, disabling it. Thoron's guards immediately subdued the commander, who continued to rage against the corruption of human influence. "Take him to the king," Thorin ordered. "The Festival of Lights will now also mark a trial of darkness." As Drav was led away, Aaliyah moved to Ryder's side, her hand finding his. Above them, the luminescent orbs of the festival formed new patterns, concentric circles that slowly merged into one unified whole. "The third part of the prophecy," she whispered, "blood and fire before the joining. There was blood. Yours." She touched a small cut on his cheek from the struggle. "And there is fire." She gestured to the festival lights, "but not as Drav intended." Holt approached them, holstering his weapon. "Parker needs to hear what happened here, directly from both of you." "He will," Ryder assured him, "but first there's a festival to attend." He turned to the human squad. "You're all invited," as the first official human delegation to Luminara. The squad members exchanged uncertain glances, decades of suspicion not easily dispelled, but curiosity and the undeniable beauty of the Luminaran lights won out. "I suppose we could report back in the morning," Holt conceded with the hint of a smile. As they crossed the river together, humans and Luminarans side by side, Ryder realized that he had fulfilled his role as ambassador in ways he never could have imagined when he first carried an injured alien girl across these same waters. You know, he said to Alia as they approached the glittering city, I never actually got to see this festival you've been teaching me about. Then allow me to show you, she replied, her eyes reflecting the dancing lights above. It celebrates the moment when separate paths become one, when individual lights join to create something greater than themselves. Sounds familiar, Ryder said softly. 6 months later, the river that had once divided two peoples became the site of a permanent bridge, a physical manifestation of the connection Ryder and Alia had begun. Dr. Hayes led the human engineering team, working alongside Luminaran architects to create a structure that honored both cultures' aesthetics and technologies. On the day of its completion, Ryder stood at the center of the bridge with Alia beside him. Now officially recognized as ambassador to Luminara, he wore a formal uniform that blended human practicality with Luminaran elegance. Alia, fully recovered from her injury and recently appointed Minister of Human Relations, wore complementary attire. From this day forward, King Luminara declared to the gathered crowds from both settlements, we recognize that what divides us is far less significant than what unites us. Old Man Parker, who had reluctantly accepted the truth after Drav's confession was broadcast, nodded in grudging agreement. Turns out, humans and Luminarans have more in common than either of us thought, he admitted. Stubbornness, for one thing. As ceremonial ribbons were cut on both sides of the bridge, Ryder turned to Alia. Not bad for an orphan kid who just helped someone across a river. The prophecy chose wisely, she replied, her fingers intertwining with his in a gesture that now symbolized unity to both their peoples. Some rivers are meant to be crossed,